So we're here in the gigantic media centre of Stadium Australia in Sydney, ready for the 2015 Asian Cup final, which will be taking place tomorrow.
Indeed.
And what a tournament it's been, huh, guys?
Yeah, it's definitely been a special one. There's been a lot of goals, a lot of excitement, a lot of unexpected winners as well.
Paul, I mean, what's been the biggest surprise of the tournament thus far for you?
Probably the way in which Australia has actually responded to the tournament. There was a lot of question marks coming in about just how many people would show up, what type of crowds they would get. There were a lot of concerns going in. And I think the way that the Australian public's embraced the tournament, you've seen fantastic crowds throughout the entire tournament. The Iranians have had exceptional support. A lot of the Middle Eastern teams have got a good support. Obviously, Palestine were the good luck story for everyone. So they obviously garnered a lot of support. And I think that has been the biggest surprise in just how much Australia has actually embraced this tournament overall.
You have to agree. I think that Australia, there are very few countries that could host an Asian Cup as vibrant and multicultural as Australia. And I mean, you won't get those sort of crowds in Qatar or Lebanon or even Japan. But you got them here, and it was great. Ryan, how about you? What was your surprise of the tournament?
Well, I think having seen so many games this tournament, it's hard to really pick just one. There's been a lot of exciting games, a lot of exciting moments throughout the tournament. I think Palestine's first goal was definitely a very special one. It was their first tournament, so to be able to score their first goal in that first tournament as well is definitely one for the record books, and I'm sure one that people back in Palestine will never forget.
And now we head to the final, the conclusion, Game 32, South Korea versus Australia, tomorrow night, sold-out stadium. How's the game looking?
It's a toss of a coin, really. You've got the best attacking team in Australia against the best defensive team in Korea, who haven't conceded a goal all tournament. So it's really open. It's a really tough one to predict the final as to how it's going to unfold. Both have got relatively young teams with a smattering of experience thrown in there, so how they handle the pressure of a big occasion, as you said, a sold-out stadium, 80,000 people, that could be a deciding factor as in who starts best, who gets on top in the first 10, 15 minutes, handles the pressure well, and is able to take control of the game. But it's such a close one to predict. It's who knows how it's going to unfold. Australia's got Tim Cahill, Korea's got Son Heung-min. Both are game winners. They can win the game off their own boot in an instant. It's a tough one to predict at this stage.
Brian, you've been to a lot of press conferences in the last month. You've got to see both coaches talk to the press. What's your impression of Ange and Uli?
I think Ange is definitely confident of his own philosophy. He's even before the tournament speaking to fans, telling them just to be patient and the results will come, and obviously we've seen that now. They're in the final and they've been quite free scoring at the same time, so he's definitely starting to get the best out of that side. As for Uli, I think he's done well in rebuilding that squad from the dismal World Cup that they had, and he looks very calmly, quietly confident in his side. He doesn't have the confidence of they can win everything, they can win every single tournament already, but he seems to be sure that they can do what's needed of them right now, and then he can continue building that squad to the future.
He said that after, I think it was the last game that they had, that even if they win the tournament, there's still a lot of improvement left in his side. So he obviously sees that. As you said, he's confident in his side that they're able to get the job done against Australia. But he knows that there's so much more that they're capable of, and they're building towards that. This isn't the end point for them. This is only the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot of talented players in his side, a lot of technically gifted players, but he always talks about the mentality, and that needs to improve throughout not this tournament and not just tomorrow, but also for the future of Korean football as well. And that's one thing he's really focused on throughout the whole tournament when I've seen him in press conferences.
What do we see sort of looking forward and looking as coaches talk about improving? the World Cup qualifiers are only about 5 months away, maybe even less. What do you see as some of the big stories heading towards those qualifiers? What can we take from this tournament as we look ahead to how Asia is going to conduct itself in the first round?
Yeah, well, it'll be really interesting because they've changed the format of World Cup qualifying this time, in that it also links up with Asian Cup qualifying. There'll be 40 teams in the first round of qualifying in 8 groups of 5, I believe it is. The 8 group winners will move on to the next round of World Cup qualifying, as long as the 4 second best placed teams. So that will really change things up. The groups will be a lot more open. You won't see sort of the big nations being pitted against each other as early as we have in the past. So it is really open. This Asian Cup was a really open Asian Cup, and I think you'll see that for World Cup qualifying too, in that, you know, Japan got knocked out in the quarterfinals, and they're trying to go through a bit of a rebuild. So how will they respond in World Cup qualifying? UAE have now really come forward as well and established themselves as a genuine challenger, and they're really targeting qualifying for Russia. That's a big aim for them. So I think going forward, it'll probably be the same teams there and thereabouts again towards the end of World Cup qualifying, but you'll see the teams like UAE really come through, and we haven't seen any of the Southeast Asian teams this tournament. They'll be wanting to make a big impression. Thailand just won the Suzuki Cup just recently, and you know they've had a pretty dismal record in recent times in qualifying. They'll be one again looking to sort of really make a mark and at least get through to the final stage of qualifying. Same with China. China really improved this tournament as well.
Ryan, speaking of Southeast Asia, was it disappointing to not have any Southeast Asian teams in this tournament, or do you think that they need to earn their spot?
Well, I think it's a mix of both, really. I mean, not to have a Southeast Asian team in the side would, it loses a little bit of colour to the tournament. You know, there's not as many fans, especially being so close to Australia as well. They're likely to travel, as opposed to, you know, there's been so many home fans here. So many, not just Australian home fans, but also the local multicultural groups are coming to the games, but not so many people are travelling to Australia. So we would get that additional sort of, I suppose, flair, and they're also very, very vocal fans. So that would also add to the feeling of the tournament, you know, a bit more vibrant. But they haven't really been performing to the point where you would expect them to be able to perform in this tournament, until only really recently, where they've started to get results. And I think after a while, you know, they're going to develop and they're going to keep building, especially from the youth up. A lot of those nations are focusing on developing their young players, and that's a very positive sign for the future.
So I guess that brings us down to predictions. I guess I'll start. I'm going to say, I think South Korea 2-0. I think they've got it. I think Australia are maybe a little overconfident, maybe deservedly so, but I think that South Korea have what they need to win that first continental tournament in 55 years.
Yeah. I, at the start of the tournament, predicted Japan and Korea to meet in the final. Obviously, Japan are out, Korea are still here. So from that, naturally, I should stick with that and tip Korea to win. And as I said, it really is a toss of a coin. It's too close to call, but I'll stick with my prediction from the start of the tournament, with Korea making the final, and I think Korea will win. I think it'll be tight. I think there won't be a lot of goals in it, because you know Korea's defence is very tight, and it's proven that. So I'll tip Korea 1-0.
Korea were a strange one at the very start of the tournament. They kind of, you had a problem trying to work out where the goals were actually coming from, because they just couldn't find the target half the time, and it was only late in the game when they would actually score. But they've slowly built into the tournament, and they've built at the right pace as well. They've become one of the teams that are actually controlling the games, and they look a lot more contained than Australia do. Australia is a lot more open, and I think that's going to play to South Korea's favour, much like it did last time they met in the group stages. So even though, you know, both Paul and I are Australians, I'm also going South Korea, just because they've looked a lot more controlled. They've looked better at the back as well. They don't look as likely to switch off at key points, and I'm not going to put a scoreline on it just because that's too dangerous of a thing to do. I'll look like a stupid person if I if I do. But yeah, I think South Korea will pip it.
So there you have it, all three of us predicting South Korea, which I guess means that we should be the first to say congratulations, Australia. But yeah, no, but seriously, it's been a great tournament. It's been a fun one, a long one, lots of travel. It's, as the one non-Australian, it's been fun to experience some of what Australia has to offer. But I think that this tournament has been very eye-opening, and I think it'll contribute to the A-League's continued success in Australia and the national team's continued success in Asia. So from Stadium Australia, we are Football Channel Asia signing off. Enjoy the game.